being here today. I really thought that someday Andre and I would gather our friends together to celebrate our wedding, but that didn't happen, and I really never could have imagined that we'd be hosting the celebration of life instead. But before I speak more about Andre, I'd like to thank a number of people. These acknowledgements are not in any particular order, and please excuse me if I leave anyone out. Gigi Obrecht, wherever you are. You were the first on the scene at 3 a.m. You jumped out of bed and looked at SF General to be by my side, and you've been here. You've been there for me ever since. Thank you, Gigi, for all the hours of hard work you put into designing the invitation and keeping track of our guest list. I mean, you've really been the communications director of this whole event. Catherine Nealon, wherever you are. Catherine is a retired hospitalist, and he was there every day with me at SF General. Not only am I grateful for all the years of friendship, but God, your medical expertise, I don't think I would have understood anything had you not been there every day. You clarified so much. It's very, very, very humble. Jeremy Kasdan, I'm really glad you never made it to Nantucket. I really leaned on you those first days. I mean, your nurturing and caring for me was incredibly comforting at that time, those first days. Joel and Julie were also there to help drive us to the airport to pick up Hugo and Zeno. It was a race to try to see Andre. Really grateful for you being able to drop everything as well. Martin Pressberg, where are you? Martin, thank you so much for setting up the GoFundMe. I'm not sure you'd be enjoying this beautiful event if you hadn't had the forethought to do that. I'm so grateful for that. I think we should Martin a round of applause also. Also, thank you to everyone who contributed. Your generosity is extraordinary. To Mark Searle, Leah Zucker-Candle, Adam Song, Lisa Lee. You have no idea how much of it to me that you were in Paris when I was this summer, thinking of those few shell-shocked meals where we just sat there. Hardly remember Andre the other. Someone you knew long before I met him, and it meant so much to me to hear the stories of Andre in his early startup days, and it was really meaningful. Marcia Silver, I really appreciated the long walks and the talks and the processing. And Robin Friedman, Amalia agree. Thank you for handling some of the Haas end of things, communications, and getting a lot of the classmates here, and also for trying to around with some of the business stuff, and just for your support. And also for the Zoom. To my sons, Raphael and Gabriel, I can see how concerned you were for me, especially those first days in July. Nothing has meant more to me than seeing how much you showed up for me. Such love, empathy, and compassion. I love you. Finally, I just want to acknowledge Andre's son, Zeno and Hugo Marquis. You two are exceptional young men. I've been so impressed by your poise, intelligence, and strength and resilience in what is such a terrible, unfair situation. I feel fortunate that despite the circumstances that we found ourselves in July, that we somehow managed to forge a tighter bond. I feel like the best of your father is in you both, and I'm really so proud. There's a petitions on the table. It's been it's been hard for me to separate the Andre I knew from the way he died, but today it feels really important to say that I want to focus on Andre's life. I don't want Andre to be remembered or defined by his death. A lot of you here knew Andre for many decades, some of you 5 decades longer than I knew him. I'm really looking forward to hearing your stories and your memories of him. As most of you know, Andre and I met each other later in life. Each of us been through somewhat stressful divorces, and single for a while, so by the time some algorithm matched us, we were both pretty ready to find each other. We always loved the fact that without the internet, we never would have crossed paths. Well, in some ways, I kind of regret it that it took technology for us to meet. Anyway, we were about 50 when we met. Despite our differences, he was a techie and I'm an artist. We really just hit it off. I liked him immediately. He was confident and talkative and warm and manly and attractive. We both liked oysters and sticky French cheeses. I have these memories of the many hours of me sitting in stop-and-go traffic, driving to Berkeley when he was still working at Berkeley. We both spent a lot of time on the road for the first couple of years. But the sparks between us, I think, were evident even to outsiders, because I remember one evening we were leaving a restaurant in Berkeley, clearly gaga about each other, and a random guy came up to us and said, "You two should get married." So we did become a couple very quickly. As you all know, Andre was a really positive person, and I think what drew me to him was that he always made me feel good about myself. He told me I was beautiful, he told me I was talented. Early on in our relationship, he told me I was the best parallel partner he'd ever dated. As we got closer, we started to meet each other's friends, and business aside, I really treasure the friendships I made through Andre, and I hope you will endure. So many of you told me individually that you'd never seen Andre so happy as he was until he met me. And he made me really happy too. You guys probably know that one of the things we love to do together was travel. Many places were linked to places Andre went for work, exotic destinations like Brazil and Peru, the large metropolitan cities, Berlin, Paris, London. I really like doing it all. I think we basically set foot on the whole continent except for Antarctica, and we were excellent travel buddies. I thought I liked to plan trips, but I was outdone by Andre, who got deep in the weeds of logistics and was the one who organized our biggest adventures. These included trekking to Machu Picchu, a glamping adventure in the Northern Territory of Australia, and safari in South Africa. I just remember how Andre took so much delight in my delight at seeing penguins in both Australia and South Africa. Over the years, I tried my best to convert Andre to being a beach lover. In any case, he put up with my love of beaches. The most magical of all was a Brazilian island I'd never even heard of, Fernando de Noronha, which is so remote that it occupies its own time zone. In the past couple of years, I've been tallying up a bucket list of destinations, repeatedly saying Andre. We're only in our 60s, we're in good shape, we're in good health. I mean, now is the time to take advantage of it. Our kids are growing up. We should go and do and see all the amazing things that we want to before like something happens and we get too old. I was really looking forward to our future together. Our last trip was in January to the Santos of Baja, and Andre kept saying, I'm really sorry, next time we'll go play someplace a little warmer. And so I never really expected that we would be here this time. My life wasn't all adventures abroad or domestic life was great. I kind of slid into my cold valley existence without making a ripple. I used to walk my little dog Tashi, and he took great care of her even though he was allergic to her. He cried too, and we had to put her to sleep. So probably the only time I didn't really see him teary. He was just such a kind and patient person. He reminded me one of these more of a complainer. I think we got through the pandemic with not even a single argument. And I'm really grateful that he even found a way to have a relationship with my sons without feeling like he needed to be a parental figure to them. My older son in particular appreciated to talk about technology and startups, while my younger son lived with us, so there was sort of a little familial dynamic for a while. Plus, he was a very nurturing person. We went through 3 orthopedic surgeries while we were together, took amazing care of me. One of the stories we love to tell, that when I was coming up out of the ether of medication, he told me that I told him that I had seen puppies in the operating room, which he thought was hilarious. He was really pleased that my subconscious was so cheery. As you can imagine, there are things I understand better about Andre now than he's gone. It's kind of such an irony. There are many conversations I wish we would have had now. Andre really was a talker. Loved explaining things so much that that he cut it short and simplified. Just like short of the technicality of his explanations. In the 12 years that we were together, I mean, there was just such a flow of words back and forth between us all the time. Sometimes we even text each other from one end of the house to the next, just to send like links or articles or tidbits of information. I felt like we were just in constant communication. We really miss having to talk to him. There's a lot more to say about Andre. He was obviously brilliant. He loved to work on complex things. I think he was most gratified by work in many ways. He was very patient. He was a natural teacher. As I said, he was excellent at explaining things. He was a dedicated mentor to many people all around the world. Not just professionally. So many of my friends' kids sought out Andre for advice over the years. I guess to wrap this up, I'll say again what you already know about him. This is what makes his death such a mystery. Oops. Andre was such a positive person. I never heard him say anything unkind about anyone. He was incredibly proud of his kids. He was obviously so good to me. He firmly believed in progress. He was really a tech optimist. He firmly believed that each of us would make a contribution to make the world a better place. Better for sure. Miss you.
So I need to start off by just massive thank you to Nina. She thanks everyone about herself. She's truly been incredibly strong through all of this, through everything that was actually happening. She was the point of contact for most people. She was just incredibly strong, getting this all organized. I don't know what to express how amazing doing this been. So please round of applause for her. You've heard some, you'll hear a lot about my dad Andre, according to the world, people's perceptions of him, the stories that people have of him, the impact that he had, the changes he made in people's lives. And I think what I'll share is, instead of my dad according to the world according to him. Because I think what he saw was really a beautiful world, and it's something that all the things that he taught me, the things that he did for me, the things he left for me, I think that's thing that I cherish most and will cherish for the rest of my life. He was just such a curious person. You'll know if you talk to him about any topic. He's already read 10 books on it. He's already, any question that you have for him, he's already asked it himself 20 years ago and has a full essay on it. I know that if I asked him, how does this microphone work, he would have, we'd have to sit down for a couple hours. And I think just like seeing the world, or trying to see the world through his eyes, where everything is, the world is full of mysteries, the world is full of problems to solve, and importantly, we can solve them. I think he was such an optimist, as Lynn said. He really saw everything as an opportunity. And he would never, like, every time I learned something, every time I was curious about something, he would always take the step, he would read about it himself, and by the time I got to a question about what I was learning, he would have already learned it, and he had all the answers. And that's been true my entire life. When I was little, I was asking about dinosaurs, he knew everything about dinosaurs. As I got older, I asked him about computers and technology, he knew everything about that. As I got even older, I asked him about politics, society. Of course, he had already read everything himself there. So I think like the way that he looked at the world is truly something beautiful. That's full of all these problems, everything is not just as it is. It's how does this work? It's how can we make it better? It's how does this actually change people's lives? And I think that outlook. He also had kind of a wonderful outlook toward people. He always gave people the benefit of the doubt. He was always generous and kind with people. And his first reaction when someone did something that seemed wrong was, the root of rhetoric is not, this person is terrible, it was, this person must be going through something, how can, there's another thing to solve. And so, I feel I've gotten a piece of what the world looked like to him, a place of, just delight, intellectual delight, a world of good people who are working together to solve these problems. And he's such an optimist. It's so easy to get down. If you just open the news headlines and all this stuff. But for him, he would say that, and he would say, well, look, life expectancy is getting better. Look at all these diseases we're treating. Look at, infant mortality is going down. The world's more peaceful than it has ever been. He would just have all these things where, to him, the world is a wonderful place that continues to get better because people are really collectively solving all these problems. And I think that really came from his experiences in his life, where he worked in so many domains and he got to see all of the wonderful work going on. And so we sort of put it all together. What was the world to my dad? It was a place full of opportunity, a place full of wonderful people with good hearts. It's a beautiful thing, I think. And so, that world is not left with it. It has impressed him all of you through your conversation with him, through the excitement that he has shared, through his optimism, through his belief in the goodness of people's hearts. And that's something that I know I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. And so, I just wanted to share that beautiful thing. And all the stories that you all have. It's great to know.
So I'd just like to echo that thanks to Dorita for basically, setting us all up, but also just enduring. And she's been really, really strong. Just to be in that space that they work together and to hold it all together and to do all the things she needed to do to, make sure she could find that support to reach out to all of us. It's just, so great and really helped create, this community. So thank you to her. And then also thank you to all of you for being here, for, being connected with him, for, just showing up and, showing your support. So thank you. But my experience with Andre, going back, My first memory is actually not in California, even though I was born there, or well, here. It was in Woburn, where he would come visit us. And life with Andre was honestly quite simple. We lived in an apartment. The food we maybe loved Trader Joe's meals, mac and cheese. That's kind of what I grew up with him, and I still love it all to this day. With our beds, once we got through our beds, he got us these mattresses on the ground to sleep on, and it was my first time not really sleeping in a bed, but it might have been the most comfortable thing I had slept on. So that's kind of how he lived, is a very simple life, but to find the things that he enjoyed, that we all enjoyed, to live that sort of life. So yeah. He also taught me a lot of just other things I think I learned from him. I remember from that apartment we lived in, one of the ways to get out was driving behind a bank in kind of the back roads. And I always thought, like, are we really allowed to do this? Are we allowed to be here? And that was just kind of what he was. Is he looked for the fastest path. It might not have been through the main roads, but that was kind of taught me to go beyond the boundaries of what I thought was possible. And he taught me so much in that regard. So he had that kind of simple, unassuming manner about him, and he kept that up for most of his life. But one time that I got to see a side of him that I think he didn't really show that often was with watching the Bruins during the Stanley Cup. So this was after the apartment in Woburn. He started staying in hotels, and it was the Stanley Cup final versus the Blues, and it was on, so I was watching with him, and I don't know if I'd ever seen him so animated in my life. He was getting into it, he was yelling. I don't know how many of you remember, but there was one time where there was a trip that was obviously a trip, but it wasn't called, and it led to the Blues scoring a goal against the Bruins. And he was really into it. He was got up, was like, "Oh, come on!" Like, just with all this energy. So I think he had this kind of calm manner for most of his life, but sometimes when you got to see all that energy, all that passion beneath it, that really was something special. And along with that passion, even though he might not have expressed it, was a lot of dedication, not only to his work, but I can speak a lot to his dedication to me and to the family, where we lived all the way across the country, and yet he would always find the time to come and visit us, no matter what, to come see us, and if he couldn't, to talk to us. And that he really didn't let anything stop him from doing that. He really took the time to connect with us. And I remember also he tried to be almost with what we were doing, which was video games. So one was Minecraft for me, when I was playing Counter-Strike. He was never the greatest at these games, but still, he really, really wanted to play with us and to connect and really, spend that time with us and what we wanted to do. And again, so accommodating to what everyone wanted to do. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that in him. So that's something about it that I'll carry on. And kind of one of the last things that I really, really loved about him is how fun he was to talk to. Even when I went off to college, I would set up calls with him every month, every 2 months. And when we would talk, we'd have a bit of time to catch up, like how are you doing, whatever. But we would quickly delve into some technical topic. Either I would talk about something I would learn in class, and suddenly he would start launching into whatever 20 minutes about how that applied in his research, how that was in his work, how that was important for my future, and everything I told him about, he really knew something. And that made me want to share all I knew with him to see basically what he had to say about it. I remember one time I'd taken an environment class, and I was talking about how seeing the coral reefs were dying or animals were going extinct, and I started to be maybe a bit worried about it. But then he started talking about all the technology that was being developed, how much we were growing as a society. And that goes back to what Tino was saying with the hope he had for our innovation. But he really saw how much we were developing, and really thought that any problem we had could be solved through our technology. And that really gave me hope that there might be a lot of struggle with the environment, but we can solve it, and it's not just a hopeless thing where for us to wait for that to go bad, but we can really go out there and go make a difference, and hope that whatever we're developing will be the solution. So that's a lot of positivity, a lot of hope that really inspired me to just continue with my work, and knowing that I will do something, and that we will all do something, we can all contribute to a hopeful future. So yeah, that's what I think his biggest kind of impact on me was just pushing us to do the best we could to contribute. So with that.
Hi. Excuse me. My name is Martin Westberg. Karina already mentioned my name. Thank you, Karina. Always gracious under any circumstances. Appreciate it. I'm part of the Brighton High School gang, proud member. I want to repeat the thanks for your generosity in donating to the Remembering Andre GoFundMe. We feel so powerless in the face of tragedy, and sometimes sending money is the only thing available to us. In this case, your donations made this event possible, and more importantly, they serve as a symbol of your love and support to Farina, and your love and support for each other. It's also going to enable a donation in Andre's honor to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, where hopefully it will do some good. We are going to keep that open a little bit longer, so if you haven't done so and you would like to do so, you can go to the GoFundMe and make a donation. I don't remember meeting Andre. He was always a part of our team, and he and I didn't often do things outside of the group. And when we did talk, it was usually about work stuff. I loved talking to Andre about business and entrepreneurship. I would learn so much, and I honestly felt pretty cool knowing that I could reach out to Andre Marquis whenever I was flirting with an idea for a startup. And I felt even cooler when I could refer someone I knew to Andre for networking or advice, knowing that he would be generous with his time and with his ideas, and knowing how impressed my friends would be after they talked to him. Andre always seemed good when I got to see him on his visits to Rochester, and I was honored again, not worried, when in late 2023, he asked me if we could meet and talk about career stuff. I was honored because I really admire him and his professional accomplishments, and also honored because I often feel insecure about my own. Felt pretty great if Andre had any interest at all in talking to me in a professional capacity. I love working with people one-on-one, but there's always a little bit of imposter syndrome and a fear that maybe I don't have all that much to contribute. I can listen and ask questions, and there are some tools in the back pocket that I can suggest depending on the circumstances. Working with Andre was easy. I listened. His business wasn't taking off, and he was thinking about a possible change or a career pivot, but he was brimming with ideas. I asked questions, and he had tons to say, all of it fascinating, all of it educational. I certainly didn't have to use any of my tools to help Andre. How absurd for me to explain to Andre how to do networking or what's LinkedIn all about. Maybe I had a sense that something else was going on behind all the discussion of product innovation and marketing strategy and business models. Or maybe I only made that up recently. Honestly, I really don't know. We met 4 times on Zoom. I can give you the exact dates and times because I checked, just like I've checked every single text and email or communication that I could find from Andre, trying to understand what has happened. The sessions ended. He canceled a few that weren't anymore on the calendar. That's not unusual. I was curious about things, where things were going, but I didn't give it too much thought. I assumed we would just pick up the conversation on the next visit to Rochester or the next group event, or whenever Andre was ready. There was plenty of time. On our way to Nantucket this summer, Marcy and I were talking about capitalism. Actually, we were talking about our kids. My kids loudly hate capitalism. So I blurted out my best trenchant nugget of economic philosophy, and I said, I love capitalism. Look at all the cool stuff. Andre loved capitalism too. Marcy pointed out that there's a problem with value in our capitalist culture. We measure value in money. Money is a pretty good way to value a business or a product, maybe not so much a person or a life. This is a challenge that maybe more of us face alone rather than publicly. Where do we fit in? Where do we provide value? Where do we feel valued? How do we value each other? I was hoping to have this conversation with Andre in Nantucket. Capitalism and value and what do we do next now that we're in our 60s? But he didn't make it. Anyway, I came up with a list of questions that I wish I'd asked Andre in early 2024 or maybe ever. What's the most important thing to you right now? Are you sleeping okay? Are you scared? Do you know how many careers you have influenced? Do you know how many people you've touched? Do you know how much I admire you? Do you know how much you're going to be missed?
ceremonies that went into organizing it, but also for the bravery of Andre's kids and, of course, Lorena. On the morning of July 10th, I texted Andre and Lorena to nail down the time of their flight to Nantucket, where our group of high school friends and significant others was gathering for a long weekend reunion. Andre had committed early and enthusiastically to the trip, which was no surprise because Andre was always up for an adventure. We traveled together from the time I was 15. That morning, Lorena texted me back. We spoke on the phone, and something in me shattered. And I have not recovered. I think Andre understood that because many of us would be together, we would be able to support one another as we try to deal with, never make sense of, but try to deal with his loss. And that is just like Andre, thinking about how to make things easier for others, those he cared about. Andre was one of my oldest and dearest friends. I first knew him as a tenor sax player in the middle school band, but I really got to know him during my sophomore year of high school when Joel invited me to join a group of juniors for weekend poker nights. And that was a sliding door moment in my life. For the next decade or so, Andre and I traveled all over. We traveled, the first one was to Boston on a Greyhound bus, but we traveled together in Mexico, traveled together in Central Asia. But the sweetest trips were up Route 15 during the summer of 1987, up to Martin's house in Canandaigua. I get off work early on Fridays in DC, and I pick up Andre in Philly. We'd stop for dinner at the new Buffalo Diner, which in retrospect I cannot recommend. And enjoying the cast of characters, hanging out, water skiing, grilling, drinking beer, and sometimes taking a run in the morning on the shore of that Finger Lake in New York. It was Eden. And Andre was there when I started law school in Boston. He had an adult apartment already in Brookline where he welcomed me to what must have been a dozen or more dinners and get-togethers with his friends. Andre always had fascinating friends, me excluded. After those Boston years, our lives diverged. He went to the West Coast and I was wound up in DC. But whenever our travels brought us to the same city, we shared meals, celebrated happy occasions together, and he met my firstborn son, Sam, before his wrist. That is Sam's wrist. I was going through my files and I found something I'd written down about Andre. I'm not sure when or where, or I should say when or why I wrote it down, but I had talked about that trip to Central Asia, and during that trip, Andre caught a wicked intestinal bug. My intestines were sort of iron because I lived in West Africa for 2 years, but we reached our first night's camping site and he was really laid low. And I think most of us had been there. And the next day he was completely wiped out. And he wasn't feeling that much better on the following day, but we had to get going. It was a point-to-point route and we had to make it to the trailhead in time to meet transportation to Baku and a flight back to Moscow. And Andre was better, but he was not yet in hiking shape, and the day started with a pretty steep and long climb, and partway up, Andre was really sad. So the guides decided that he would ride one of the donkeys that we had as a pack animal, and I briefly took pictures. But Andre was not amused. He was a big, strong, athletic guy, and it galled him to have to take a ride on a donkey up the mountain. And once we hit the pass, he was off the donkey, hiked the rest of the day, and was pretty fully recovered by the next day. And that somewhat comic incident came back to me as I've been trying to process the loss of my friend. And it occurred to me that Andre was about as even-tempered a guy as you would want to be. There was a way to irritate him, and that was to offer him help. It's a silly memory, but in that apartment apartment in Brookline, he was opening a bottle of wine and the corkscrew wasn't cooperating and I offered a hand. And his response cannot be repeated. And I can recall a few such incidents. He was so independent and so self-reliant. And as ready as he was to help others, he did not ask for help. And I think that attitude, that reluctance to acknowledge weakness, the reluctance to ask for help, it's an attitude that I recognize in myself, and many of those I grew up with. And I'm not talking about over-the-top macho toughness. No one ever accused anyone in our group of that. Being the one who can help others without needing help. That was the ideal. And this horrible senseless tragedy brought home to me that to need help is part of what it is to be human. And that to seek help from friends, from family, from community, from professionals, is to give a gift to all those who care about you. We are all blessed to have known Andre and to have shared with them so many moments of good fellowship and joy. And when I call his image to mind, I see him climbing up a rock face in Uzbekistan, or slaloming by in a motorboat on a lake of glass, or sharing breakfast in Sacramento, or grilling salmon on the back porch of the race park. His hair grew whiter and sometimes more wild, but he was always the same Andre. His memory will be a blessing for me, and may it be a blessing for all of us.
I tried to write this down, and I couldn't see the paper, so I didn't do my best. I wanted to share with you what Andre meant to me. I met Andre in 9th grade, and I don't remember how. It was just there. We were all nerds, and well, we just fell together. And yet, as you heard, this continuous friendship that when I tell people about it, they're amazed. Like, I don't even know anyone from my high school anymore. I don't talk to them. It's like, well, 6 of them live over there, and one lives over there, and they all live 2,700 miles away from Brighton. They all live in my neighborhood. I'm like, how's that possible? Well, we're all nerds, and that's how we met, and that's how we stayed together. I'll move to Silicon Valley. That's what nerds do. But we used to joke that we couldn't make any other friends because we were so nerdy, and that's why we had to keep all of our friends from 9th grade. But if you look around, you realize how untrue it is. But it didn't diminish the bonds that we had together over all these years. Yeah. You're not always as close to everyone off in your lives. In Boston, you moved to the West Coast, we all moved around a lot in our lives. It all ended up here. And I'm so excited to have my friends collected in this nexus to start our retirement together. And fully anticipated that that would continue with Andre. I too really look forward to us all getting together at that time this summer. And the shock of that. But I want to take you back to what Andre meant to me. For a while, we were extremely close. We were nerds. Steve taught me to use computers, I think, when I was 9 or something like that. 5th grade science project using computers. And this is, in the 70s when no one knew what was. Andre built one, and it was a Commodore 64 or something. Steve had a CompuColor, and I learned the program at RIT with Steve on the Sigma 7. This is, 1974 or something. So this led to one of my neighbors knowing that I could do stuff with computers, and we ended up working at the nuclear structure facility at the University of Rochester as a teenager writing code. And it wasn't that great at writing code. It was okay. Andre was better. So I decided, to learn something new. I can sort of do the computer thing a I'm gonna go and learn how to make machine stop wire. So Andre and I, as teenagers, had this opportunity to basically build one of the first mass spectrometers in the world. It ran on the big accelerator and part of this nuclear facility. That's what our building did. The next building was trying to make fusion, right? The fusion reactor building. And they didn't succeed, but we did. But not in the way you would think, because Andre and I worked together. We didn't have any other friends except this nerd community. We all got together almost every night, and on the weekends we would go out to a day club. And then, of course, since we worked together, and every once in a while we ran experiments, it was radioactive, so we couldn't be there. I couldn't build things. They had to use the computers, to run the machines and use the things that Andre wrote. We were like 15, 16 years old. It was really great exposure for us. So we would then go hiking together in the Adirondacks. We had our vacations together. So after a while, our friends stopped calling us Rich and Andre. Sorry with my tears, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Johnson, all kinds of Andre. But in that first summer, we merged. We fused. We became Randy. People stopped referring to us as individuals because, unlike the experiment across the street, we formed a stable and energetic animal called Randy was an element. And I never thought that element would decay. I thought our half-life was infinite. We had a full life together with our friends and each other, and on so many adventures. And those things continue. Right? We worked a couple summers together. I went away to stay in Rochester. He had to work there during the year. I came back to work in the summers at the lab. And it was just like old times. We were just non-divisible. We were an atom that couldn't be split. And that continued even after we both were working and doing things. We would still go on adventures. We actually were one of the first Yankees to hike the West Highland Way back in the 80s, shortly after. We did that trip together. It was actually a business trip to the south of France. Andre came and said, "Oh, I'll go with you." We went there for a week together, drove around the mountains, went down to the beaches. He did go to beaches back in the 80s. And then we hiked the West Highland Way. I had to go back to work, and I still had some time. We stayed and finished the West Highland Way, which is a beautiful trail in Scotland in the Highlands. We went out to Oban and out to the Highlands, came back, and then I had to go back to work. So I never finished this 100-mile trek, 100 miles. Not as well, because it was Andre who could do this. So we split off then. I've always wanted to go back and do that hiking. I never had an opportunity, but I thought I would do it with my friends. In the days when they were retired. When I wrote these things, and I won't be able to do it with Andre. And to see Andre in the Highlands, the air, the wind, we had a wonderful time. Too never to appreciate Scotch, but later in life he really had a taste for Oban, which is a city that we had started on our journey. So I do fully intend to go back as the indivisible Randy and remember him, some of his favorite beverages, and relive our experiences in the picture. And just, I wanted to do it just with his memory. Thank you.
From the audience, this microphone is very tricky. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm going to warn you that you're going to see me twice this afternoon. My first job is to read some messages that were sent by people who could not be here today. So although my name is Mark Searle, I'm going to be 3 different people. Then I'm going to sit down and then I'll come back and be Mark Searle. So I have 3 messages to read. And each one I'm going to give a little bit of context so they make sense, because you probably don't know these people. But it's likely that each person I'm going to read, some of you know them. And the first one actually requires reminding you all something about Andre, which is, you all know Andre was, I will just say, a fan and supporter of artificial intelligence. I met Andre in 1998. Got that, 1998. Well, I picked up that piece of paper. The second conversation I ever had with Andre was an argument about AI. He was a fan and supporter, and I was a skeptic. So, recently Andre described it, the period we live in now, these last 3 years since the release of GPT-4, as the end of the AI winter that I've been waiting for my whole career. So in that context, I'm going to read to you from our Berkeley School of Business colleague, Henry Chesbrough. And Henry and Andre for several years now have been co-teaching a course. And that course happens always at the end of the summer, at the end of July, or in the middle of summer, at the end of July. So Andre died 1 or 2 days before they were going to start teaching this course together. And Henry was a little bit distraught about that. And Henry, as one does if one is distraught and a fan of artificial intelligence, decided, and I'm now going to read from his email, I issued a prompt to Claude Sonnet 4.0 to give me an assessment of Andre's contributions to entrepreneurship. This was Henry processing his brief. And here is Sonnet's response. So what follows is a quote from Claude Sonnet 4.0. Marquis appears to be a rare combination of successful practitioner and effective educator. His contributions span multiple domains, creating successful companies across different industries, IT and life sciences, pioneering innovative business processes that have generated millions in value, and developing educational infrastructure that scales entrepreneurship training globally. His work seems particularly focused on making innovation processes more efficient and scalable, which is valuable both for startups and large corporations. His dual role as both entrepreneur and educator suggests he brings real-world credibility to his teaching while applying academic rigor to practical business challenges. And then Henry adds, I shared this apt assessment with the class. So that was Henry's message to Karina, which I was proud of and I wanted to be able to read to you. Okay, the second message comes from Professor David Gilbert. David Gilbert is the head of the entrepreneurship program at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. Can you still hear me okay? Professor Gilbert writes, Andre's annual visit to Melbourne to work with us is a highlight we all look forward to each year. Words do little justice to the connection we form, and the similarities in our careers are quite uncanny. From Sun Microsystems back in the day, being mad enough to not just found one business, but to do it multiple times, ending up in the bureaucratic weird world of academia, we often did not have to say anything, just look at each other and nod. It was enough to express many thoughts. I admire Andre's intelligence, his insatiable curiosity, and his generosity towards others, especially our future entrepreneurs and innovators. I know he touched the lives of many around the world, and heaven knows the world could do with many, many more Andres in a moment like this. Our students often talk about points of inflection after time with Andre, and each year I often have to tell him it was after 9 p.m. and time to call it for the day. I have no doubt he wanted to stay for a few more hours, as did our students. His commitment never wavered. It did not matter that he just stepped off a long-haul flight. He was always ready to go. I'll pause here to say one more thing about Dave Gilbert. Dave Gilbert was, in a previous life, before he became a professor of entrepreneurship, a professional bigwig surfer. He is an exceptional world-class surfer, which now becomes relevant for our followers. But it was not always work, and perhaps my short story says a lot about Andre. I promised to take him surfing down on the beautiful surf coast west of Melbourne. Andre was well aware of my love for the ocean and surfing, and he was so excited when I picked him up to head the 2.5 hours down the Great Ocean Road. He marveled at all the famous surfing spots like Bell's Beach and Moon Pop. When we arrived at my friend's house overlooking the beautiful Pacific, he immediately wanted to head out for a surf. But it was terrible. With disorganized swell being battered by a strong onshore wind. It was terrible surfing conditions. I had debated which surfboard to bring for Andre and finally settled on my favorite pipeline board that had gotten me into and out of so much trouble over the years at one of Hawaii's most famous surf breaks. Andre was honored, and even when I told him I wasn't too keen to go out in the terrible conditions on that day, he was out there, ready to go, with a huge smile on his face. Truly, the best surfer in the world is the one with the biggest smile on their face, irrespective of how skillful they are. Andre was the best surfer in the world that day. Whilst I was too spoiled to go out, he raced down the beach and then spent nearly 2 hours getting smashed by the mighty Pacific Ocean. He would paddle, 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 and be driven back by the ocean again and again. But from the balcony, I could see how much fun he was having and marveled at his determination and spirit. To close a good old down under story, I made some salad rolls and fresh coffee for lunch while Andre was surfing. When he came back, he was so amped about being in the ocean and how refreshing it was. He'd enjoyed what surfers like me would watch straight past. And it made me appreciate just that little bit more how privileged we are to be free and to be surrounded by those whose company we value and love. Andre put his salad bowl and coffee down on the grill, surrounding the outside deck overlooking the ocean, turned, and as quick as a flash, I caught a shimmer of silver and blue feathers, and before I could utter a warning, Australia's most famous game fisher, the laughing kookaburra, swooped, and Andre's salad bowl was its lunch. As it thrashed the salad bowl against the deck to ensure that its catch was indeed not breathing anymore, they hunt fish, snakes, and lizards. The kookaburra, calm as you like, turned its head to us and let fly with a trademark laugh. It was one of the few times that I've seen my friend truly speechless. And then we started laughing. 3 kookaburras enjoying a priceless moment. Your next minute is here for you, Andre. Paddle Bartlett, and Missy Baker, my friend, Professor Dave Gilbert, on behalf of my mental school. And just to close this portion, I have one more short message. This comes from Manav's. By the way, the picture of Andre with this yellow surfboard that's gone by a couple times on this reel, that's from that day with Dave in Australia. There's been a few shots of our colleague from Bangalore, India, Manav Sabod from Waving Tail, and Manav, Andre, and I. Manav introduced me to. Andre introduced me to Manav, the 3 of us worked together, but Andre and Manav have collaborated for many years. So this is from Manav Sabod from Bangalore, who was sadly put in the ago. It's very simple. I miss him and wish I had spent more time. I remember our visit to the Taj Mahal, managing the chaos of too many roads. Andre and Mark coming to my home for dinner and telling my wife, "Don't worry, Manav will be fine." This was in the time I had just left it. I also fondly remember Florina and Andre hosting my son Akshay over a warm dinner at home as he was transitioning to the 2000. Still can't believe he is no more, but he will stay forever in my memories as a dear friend who contributed immensely in my professional and personal life. I'll see you later.
Is this okay? Is that all right? I'm not normally the subject
I'm not normally someone who reads from notes, I kind of wing it, but I think this is such an important subject to me or topic to me that I want to make sure to hit all the key stuff here, so I'm going to have the biggest font, but I'm going to try to do my best with what I've got here. My name is Robert Friedman. I worked with Andre for the past 6 years, and I've known Andre for the last 30 years. I'm part of the Haas 96 group, who all went to business school together. Nice to see so many of you here, despite the reason. This is a tough loss for all of us. I don't think I've ever been this close to somebody for a loss like this in this way of time. I'm still processing it, I think, day by day. We worked together, for several years here in San Francisco. We meet at various coffee shops and do all the things you do, like a startup and meet outside and in parks and whatnot. And just about everywhere I drive, I see Andre, I think about Andre, and then realize I won't see him again that day. I just want to talk about a couple of things here. I look at these pictures up here, and I see Andre in younger years and older years, but I see an energy and an exuberance and that huge smile he's got there throughout all the pictures. He right to the very end, he was the positive, bouncing, energetic Andre that I think we all think of. His energy was boundless, and he applied it to just about everything he did. I remember so many things from these past years. I think about more recently our walks with Tashi, Ian putting his dog. Andre didn't totally seem like a dog person to me, and yet Tashi was this kind of small, black, interesting dog that he and Andre and Tashi somehow just had this relationship. It was on me for a while to get it on. We have two big support from Andre's influence. But we walk around the neighborhood, and we go to the pet shop every day, and Tashi would get his treat, and then we go to other places, and Tashi preferred to go to the bathroom, and I didn't have dogs yet, so I didn't fully understand this relationship that Andre had with his dog, and what he did, but the reason we go into that level of details, I think just his care and his willingness to meet this dog where it was, I don't know, it struck me. It was a neat thing to see for me. I have two dogs, and I totally understand it. So things like that. I remember coming out of business school, maybe it was last year, right? You can correct me on this. But I think he had 3 startups going at the same time. And we all of us who knew him thought he was just bananas. we tried to get him out for drinks or events or whatever. And he's like, I can't do it, I gotta go do this thing. He just seemed like he was living at full speed, and he just had to find a way to cram it all in. His feet shoes. You all remember those? I don't know, they were vinyl. They had toes. They didn't, like the front of it was all toes. He had those early on, and he'd wander around in the speed shoes, and we were looking at him, why are you wearing these speed shoes? I think some of the elderly okay, good job. So he let the feet shoes go, but he had his uniform that he wore really just about everything. His safari travel Pana's one of those tech fabric brands, yeah, and he just wore that to everything. I mean, what was that? I see some suits here, but yes, that's the fun one right there. Things like that. Silly things like a bunch of us out of business school, we rent a ski house every year up in Tahoe for the ski season.
So there's like 20 of us that went in on the house, and then on any given weekend, there would be 40 people up there, sleeping in hallways and closets and underneath tables. And we mostly skied at, it's called Palisades up in Squaw. And Andre didn't ski, he telemarked. You don't do this, you kind of bounce around. And he and another of our classmates, Chris Lee, who couldn't be here today, they would just go bouncing down some of the steepest hills at Squaw. While the rest of us were skiing, they just had to add a difficulty level to it. It was just ridiculous. I just think of pictures of that are in my mind. I'm just bouncing down this hill. I see the smile in him doing all these programs. I just think of that exuberance for life that he displayed. More recently, I remember our daily scrum calls, which those of you who are exact, scrum calls are supposed to be, it's called stand up. You get up there and you each have about 30 seconds to say what you're up to and what issues you have, and then you get off the phone and go work the rest of your day. That is not how we do scrum calls. Ours were kibitz sessions, where we talked about just about everything, and Andre had a lot to talk about, as so many said. I'll talk about a couple of those things in a second, but I will say this, I felt so fortunate to be talking to somebody of such wisdom and intelligence and positivity about what he could do for the world, what could happen in the world on a daily basis. We covered all sorts of topics, but every day he had something. Every call would start, and you get on, that's what it started in the morning. And we just cover everything. The books he was reading, gym updates, as we were getting older, he liked to talk about himself a lot, which exercises he currently could do, which ones he couldn't anymore, or didn't feel like he wanted to because he couldn't do it as quickly as he used to be able to, what audio book he was listening to, give a full update on those, and how that topic affected the world and his theoretical framework of the world. So this is a real-time adjustment of theoretical framework that was going on. His travel updates, see a lot of pictures from around the world. Oh, there's Tasha. Is that Andre on board? That's not Tony. But his travel updates, where he and Farina just went all over the world, and his business trips all over the world. South America, Mexico, Australia, Europe, Asia, just everywhere. And then where they're going next, and why. I always got the why. What did he read, or what influenced him to decide to go to the next place, and what the logic was behind that great decision. His absolute love and dedication to everyone in his personal life. His many friends, so many of you here, I heard your names through years, and his love of you, Farina, and your boys, and his absolute pride in you guys and all three of you kids. I knew of you from birth all the way from now, just from years of knowing him, and I heard his updates through his eyes and just his absolute pride in what you guys are up to, and his absolute love of you guys. I think that's just to reiterate. It mattered so much to me. I think the most difficult thing to accept is Andre's, I don't want to call it a sense of failure, but a sense of distress that what he wanted to attain, what he wanted to do in the world was slipping away from him. And I think maybe that is part of what led to his how he passed away. But he had a desire to create what he called movements. That was what he thought it should look like. He didn't want to create a company, creating companies. He didn't want to create a company. He wanted to create a different way of thinking and a different way of being. He wanted people to truly think differently about how they process the world, how to innovate and do new things in the world. And my sense was he just didn't feel like he was getting there with that. And I think that's the most difficult thing to accept. because you can look at the LinkedIn's and the Facebooks, and I can look at the number of classes. I know for sure there were a couple thousand startups that he mentored, probably more beyond that, with 3 to 5 people involved in the team. I think I did this now, so last time I'll talk. 8,000, 10,000, plus all the seminars and whatnot that he did, marketing probably add to that. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world, Andre had an impact on. I don't know if you could call it a movement, but it certainly was an impact. And it makes me the most sad that he couldn't see that for himself. And it's wonderful that we're saying these things, because at least it vindicates it. It doesn't change it, he's not here to hear it, but it at least vindicates it. He wanted so much to make it happen, and he did. So I guess I'll leave it at that. He touched so many people. He touched me deeply. Like I said, I see him every day somewhere in the city, and I miss him every day. And it's a tremendous loss for all of us. And so thank you all for being here to grieve over his passing. And may his memory be blessed.
So my name's Joel. I wasn't going to talk today, so I'll be brief. I promise I'll be brief. I was actually struck by Mark Minahan's comments. I thought I'd stand up here because Andre did ask for help a couple of times in my experience. I met him in middle school. What we didn't share, Andre had standards, he had aspirations, he had goals, he wanted to accomplish them. Never wanted to do that. And all I had to share was insolence and disrespect for authority. So, let's see if I can talk directly about the 2 times he asked me for help. One was freshman year of high school. I think Hugo mentioned that he was into hockey. Yeah. He was a hockey player. I couldn't do any sports. He got in some conflict. It sprinkled into freshman year life. And he asked me to come back him up in the hallway after school because he'd been told to meet this guy in the hallway after school. Very freshman male experience. And I said no in an utterly cowardly way because in no way was I prepared to back him up in a physical way. So it was a little painful for me to say because he did ask for help, and I said no. Not really. This isn't when he asked for help. We shared one thing pretty intensely for the first few years of high school. We played chess in the back of classes overtly, passing the chess, mini chess back and forth in the back of class. This was more my insolent and disrespect for authority that he was willing to tolerate. We didn't get challenged about it, believe it or not, much. But anyhow, we shared that, and if you understand, that was kind of who I was. I also got jumped in high school. But the second time is much later. I was in graduate school. It was probably 89. It was Boundary Waters. Northern Wisconsin, Canada. It was November, and there was nobody else in the canoe on the Boundary Waters but us. And the waves on the Boundary Waters were above the canoe height. And it was snowing in the morning, and it was max temperature, probably 40 Fahrenheit. We were in the middle of the lake, the swells were coming over the canoe. I was in the back of the canoe, so I was sort of responsible. And Andre was furious with me because I was not doing it well enough. And we were very close to losing all our stuff and being in a freezing lake in the middle of Wisconsin. And he really ask for help. More of a, why aren't you living up to what we need to do, and the aspirations of doing this well? And we survived. We did not capsize. So all I have to say, I do think he, a few times in his life, has asked for help. Right? Not very often, and that's it. And I miss him.
I also am going to need two people. So the first reading is for somebody that couldn't be present tonight. So this is from Chris Swersey. I was told to stand on the side of the stage and didn't have the. Chris Swersey writes, I met Andre in college during upper level year 2 organic chemistry course taught by a psychopathic chain-smoking genius who taunted his students and demanded excellence that only few were able to achieve. We earned 2 of only 3 A's the professor gave to a class of 30. Within a week, we were inseparable and spent the next 3 years as college housemates. I learned quickly that Andre was, without exception, always the smartest person in the room. He was larger than life, and his default was to find the best in people. Andre had a heart of gold. His take on the world was optimistic, relentlessly curious, and full of potential. He had the driest, sharpest sense of humor and could skewer anyone before they knew what hit them. If you felt his wrath, a very rare occurrence, which I saw only once, is because you were truly a deserving asshole. Andre was caring, sincere friend, and just shy enough that he kept that side to himself. He kept that side of himself to a very small number of fortunate, blessed people among whom I am the privileged to count myself. At the same time, he was a genius for the professional network of thousands who he touched with intelligence and grace. He inspired greatness and creativity that led to many small and not so small fortunes made, and a few lost by many people a lot less intelligent and deserving. Andre had that wry smile that always made you unsure if he thought you were funny or an idiot. Fun fact, again, hockey, we'll bring it back to hockey. He played Division I hockey for a year. Smart, witty, kind, and a jock. And I will add that Andre told me he couldn't see out of one of his eyes, so he had no depth perception, and it was really hard to track that out. Back down to Chris. He was a Renaissance man and an absolute enigma. Most of all, Andre was fiercely loyal, loving father and partner. About 10 years ago, Serena, Andre, and his beautiful kids joined me and my kids for a week of whitewater rafting on Idaho's Salmon River, and there's a couple pictures in there, I believe. We learned a lot about people during shit weather in the middle of the wilderness. Since that trip, we spoke many times about our families, what was working, what were the challenges, what was possible for our kids and partners. Andre loved his family deeply and purely. Now my deepest wish is that across their lifetimes, Serena, Zeno, Hugo, and Catherine take comfort in knowing this essential truth and could feel it in their hearts. Andre was one of 2 college friends I've kept in touch with since graduation. The other is my friend Annie. We were the 3 musketeers who drank way too much Jenny Cream Ale. I don't think I was there for that. Ate way too many chicken wings from Smitty's, and laughed for so many hours our bellies ached. And now Andre is missing from all of our lives. There's so much I don't understand about his departure, and I guess I never will. As I try to make sense of it, I've decided to focus on a lifetime of fantastic memories and to follow his example by giving my all to my kids, my partner, and my friends. Andre was my friend. I loved him, and I missed him dearly. Again, Chris Swersey wrote that. Now, to the second one. My name is Annie Reimer, and I want to show you this great shirt that I am wearing. My friend Andre gave it to me back in 1987, and I think of him every time I wear it. This is so Andre. Number 1, his generosity. he picks out and buys this great shirt for me, and see, it still looks good today. Number 2, his educating. He tells me all about this new product, polypropylene, and how it will keep me warm and wet and will be great for all my outdoor activities, and probably a bunch of more scientific stuff that I don't remember. Number 3, his humor. We're sitting on a plane, and he tells me that this has some downsides, that it can burn into my skin if I'm going to crash. So I probably shouldn't be wearing it on this plane right now. And I just look at him really wide-eyed, and then he smirks, and we both dissolve into laughter. At the University of Rochester, we became a close-knit group of friends, Andre, Chris, Beth, and myself. We'd go to Nick Tavo's for garbage plates at 2 a.m. Under Chris's leadership, we'd go rock climbing at Rattlesnake Point in Canada. I could usually find Andre in the library, and he would be agreeable to some adventure to take my mind off studying. I was never as studious as he was. When I was finishing up school in Greece, Andre flew over and we traveled through Greece, Italy, and France together. At one of the train stations in Italy, we were trying to decide which way to head, and he picked Sorrento because of the Monty Python skit about the dead cat. Andre came to all of our weddings. He was always there for us. Andre was funny. Andre was intimidatingly, to me, smart. Andre cared about people and he cared about the world. I wish he could understand the hole that all of us feel by his absence. I'm sorry he felt he had to leave. We all miss you, Andre.
My name is Josh Whittle. I'm the member of Brighton Meetings. I met Andre right at the beginning of this. We grew up together. We lived very close by. We played on the street. We were not always the best of friends, but we were always friends. And then we went our separate ways. And I sort of lost touch with him for a while until I graduated from art school and moved to Philadelphia, and lo and behold, there was Andre. And he sort of adopted me. I didn't even know anything else in the city, but he had already been there for a little while. He was very around. And we spent a lot of time together for several years. He was working when I moved to Philly and I met Andre, he said to me, I'm working at a startup. We're using artificial intelligence to analyze images of those tumors. And I sort of knew what all those words meant, but I don't know that I had any understanding of what they meant when put together in my work. I didn't know what a startup was. They just got my words. And we sort of fell into a rhythm of getting together on a regular basis because he was working for a guy named Neil. And the two of them seemed to have a fairly casual working situation. Maybe we kind of knock off at 2 or 3 on Friday and start drinking. And then I would pick Andre up because I had a car, and we'd go out and meet at a few more drinks and go out to dinner. And we usually went to sort of a Chinatown in Philadelphia, and we'd try a different restaurant every time. And I learned about Andre's amazing capacity for risk-taking. Because over the course of these dinners, we invented a game in which you ordered for the other person, and if they couldn't finish their dinner, they had to pay. And there, I think you could exclude 1 or 2 things that you were not really willing or interested in investing the risk into, but it's indicative to me of his sort of willingness to just throw himself into whatever it was that he was interested in. And I remember before I moved to Philadelphia, speaking to him, one of the few times I spoke to him, I was in finishing undergraduate school and trying to decide, should I go to grad school, should I take a year off? And he was planning to go to Kazakhstan or something like that. And I thought I was taking a little risk.
we have to spend this time together at a really pivotal point, I think, in both of our lives. Early mid-20s, just learning what we were going to be, learning who we were going to be. We spent a lot of time cooking and eating together. And I am not by nature a particularly optimistic person. And Andre was forever attempting to educate me on what it was that I was not seeing. Because, and I think everyone who stood up here has said this about him, he had an unbelievable ability to ferret out the flaw in your argument if what you were saying is insanely negative about yourself. And he would work his magic on your sentence and change it to be something that, look, you're saying, this is what you're actually saying. Here's what you should actually be saying. He was a mystery to me. I came sort of up in the same group of friends, but I was never really quite as oriented in the sciences or as some people are. And so we would have these conversations, and I could not understand how he knew all of the things that he knew. And what was amazing, looking back on it, was that he didn't look down on me for this. He was not belittling in any way. He helped me move a couple times. He was just like really useful to have around because he was so big and strong. And I would try to repay him with a thing. I would make something, I'd make a lamp or a little table or something. And looking back on it, I'm not sure where I thought he was going to put these things or what he would do with them, but he was always incredibly gracious and would accept them, praise me for the work that went into it and made me feel good about what I was doing. And we haven't seen each other in a while. But I always knew that if there was some major life decision that I needed to make, if there was a question that I could reach out and ask him, he would be open and willing, and he would take his time to talk to me, help me out. And it was astonishing to me to think that that's not the case anymore. I miss him.
This is very hard for me. I was in the last cohort for UC launching a new group. I was very fortunate as a first year undergrad to be with someone as smart as him, to be with someone as compassionate as him. No matter how busy he was, he meet with me every single week. I was going through so many things mentally, away from my peers, completely questioning everything. But he would offer me compassion in every circumstance. He would always self-assure me and believed in me more than I believed in myself. He was an amazing man. And all I wish is that while I was sharing all my insecurities, that I was asked what was going on with him. He's made a tremendous impact on me. And whatever I do going forward, he will be part of those efforts. Because I'll cherish him and I'll remember his lessons and his mentorship all throughout as I continue on. God bless you, Andre. I love you so much.
So my name is Kevin Brown. I'm part of the Haas grad school family, and that's really how we think about it. I met my wife there as part of it. Some of our continuing best friends and some great friends from a long time. And Andre was one of my closest friends. So we met, again, really got to know each other in the basement of Barrows Hall. This was the kind of old business school before we moved to the nicer days. And he was really one of the smartest people I've ever met. But his intelligence times his kindness and positivity puts him in a really rare zone. And so we geeked out pretty hard. This was 1994, just really the kind of the start of the whole internet thing. And he'd been on the Human Genome Project, and he was fully geeked out and had just been thinking about all this stuff and had been using all this. And we realized how fortunate we were to be able to have 100 hours a week to just geek out and figure out what this thing was and to be in somewhere like Berkeley and have access to sort of our good friends like Adam from the computer science department, from professors, from everything that we had around us. So we ended up starting the Internet Business Club together and getting people kind of excited and showing them stuff. And it's kind of primitive back then. You click a link and wait for the dial-up, and then something would show up, and we were pretty enthusiastic. People thought we were a little bit off, but we were excited. And so we ended up, as it became a little bit more sort of obvious that there was something going on. We ended up actually getting recruited in to teach in the executive MBA program. So here we are, first-year MBAs, and we're teaching for beer money in the exec program. But these giant corporate groups come in, and they haven't really seen this new internet stuff, and we're spending 100 hours a week, and we kind of knew everything there was. And so we're like, hey, check this out. And it was such an energetic and fun time, and it really, all of the incredible shared experiences I hear about, those are the experiences I had, and all the positive impact I had from him, of making me feel much more what's possible. How can I do more? How can I have that curiosity and sort of embrace everything that was happening? So we sort of ended up joining with some of our good friends here in the student government, and got to work really closely in that. And so that was a really fun way to have something aside from classes to work on, and kind of our organizing principle is that hey, there was something happening, and we wanted to make sure that Berkeley was in a good position with all this technology stuff that was going on. One of the things that he helped me with is we wrote the first web page for the business school, and figured out, we didn't really have permission, but we figured out, for somebody that letting us put it on a server, and just those kind of experiences, together, those were that kind of spark of entrepreneurship. And so, even we were friends in a business school and but we were also just friends. And so when I started dating my lovely wife Jenny, who lived down the hall from me in Santa Barbara, we did a double date, and he showed up and he brought all of the stuff to make sushi. So that was well beyond my culinary capabilities. But he just showed up. He was always just so much more worldly, and he was just much more sophisticated. Kind of like the older brother that I could learn from. So, as part of this, where we were doing these lectures, we ended up doing a lecture at the alumni weekend, homecoming alumni weekend, and we were up on stage in the big hall at Berkeley, and we were showing everyone the Louvre. So this is not that exciting right now, but in 1995, be able to pull it up and walk through the Louvre, and just the reactions were amazing. And but the most important thing is my future in-laws were in the audience, and Andre made me look. And so it was just one of these kind of
life experiences, and in fact, he sort of continued on that journey with us, and he was a groomsman in our wedding 28 years ago today. So many years later, we stayed in touch, and had always had kind of that easy rapport. There's friends a year passes or a day or it doesn't matter. Like we've known each other longitudinally. You just know who you are. And so many years later, I was talking to him on the phone, and I'd stayed active with the entrepreneurship program at Berkeley. And we were looking for a new director, and he told me that he was looking to move back to the Bay Area. And so I said, well, I've got an idea for you, Andre. What would you say to coming back and running this thing? And he said, that sounds really amazing. Like, let's come and talk about that. And, I knew what a quality person he would be and how great it would be for Berkeley. But I had no way to foresee the scale of impact that he was going to have. So, to everyone here who's been a friend to him, and Rita, and the boys and the family, I'm so impressed with everyone. And it's so amazing to see you here. And we're going to miss him. He's still here.
Like Mark, I've been tasked with relaying a letter from this one from Katie Coughlin, who all the Hosseys know. She gave me permission to mention her health challenges. Katie's been fighting cancer for close to 3 years now. She's really fighting for her life. Lives in Norway, can't be here. When we Zoomed a couple of weeks ago, I found it really painful to think that Katie's doing everything she can to stay alive, and Andre couldn't go there. But she wrote a lovely letter, and I guess another preface. When we were in that Zoom talk, she said she met Andre somewhat close to the beginning of their time together at Haas, and she said, and he was wearing shorts, and he just had the most magnificent calves. And he still did. He has a 62-year-old. Okay, so Katie's letter. Dear Andre, I'm writing this from a cabin in my favorite Norwegian fjord. The very one that I hope to share with you in Verena. The stillness of the morning is soothing, the sunrise is casting shadows of light across mountains and clouds reflected in the water below. This is my happy place where I sort things out that need sorting. I remember meeting you at orientation week at Haas in '95. You and Kevin Brown were setting up for the Surfing the Web for Business and Pleasure session. What a grand time of possibilities that was. We became friends, and I still remember the first adventure with you, driving to Twin Peaks with a view, only to find fog. On the packed road trip, we bought beer from a vending machine, explored deserted Tokyo on a Sunday morning, and let Bill's Sonnenschein, talk us into going to the Thai, quote-unquote, coffee shop. Many other memories bubble up, such as meeting in London and witnessing your mastery conducting an agile business model innovation seminar in Berlin. In your company, everything was an adventure. You were fascinating. When you asked Fran Hill, director of the MBA admissions, if you could stand for your interview for the Haas MBA program, and did. That you could talk about almost any subject in great detail, that you had an energy about you that was contagious, and that you were horrified that I would not give up my Yahoo email address for Gmail. I can't imagine my next trip to San Francisco without you there. You always made time for me, and I'm so grateful for that. We shared good and bad times. So many of your words still echo in my head. My most treasured memory is pondering the meaning of life in 2013 at the Hotel Shadow Bar and lighting input from our collective young kids and sharing stories about them. I confided that you would sometimes appear in my dreams to rescue me in some trouble. You wrote me the next morning saying, "What you said about your anxious dreams, well, it's a compliment and the easiest way to be helpful I've ever known. I can say that if a dream needs to become reality, you can count on me." You introduced me to Karina in 2014. I adored you as a couple, but in 2018 we became family. I was on a writing retreat in Berkeley and met you and Karina for dinner. Upon telling you that my Airbnb smelled toxically of chlorine, that I had been sleeping on the host's sofa, you really insisted on driving to pick up my things and moving me home to Carl Street. You rescued me. Last summer, my family met at Golden Gate Park, and you three are in most of the pictures, as it should be. Selfishly now, I can't believe you're gone just when I need you most. You were my big brother and champion. The fjord clouds have cleared away and the day is filling with sun. I wish I could be part of your memorial gathering to honor you and share the loss. It's so heavy. I hope these words help add to the notes. That was you. I really miss you.
Also one of the writing crew. I've known Andre for more than 50 years now. And as I was listening to the moving tributes today, with so many people, I was reminded of just how grateful I am for the way that Andre was a source of support and consolation over so many years of my own life. We delivered papers together and discussed the great issues of the day at the Marquis kitchen table as grade school students. We were apartment mates in Boston. And I remember as we were handling the practicalities of moving, I was the liftman chap to my professor trying to operate our U-Haul truck very badly. And I remember Andre very patiently showed me how to operate the vehicle so that I could do the thing. I would say the only negative memory I have of that move was my own jealousy as I watched the admiring glances of the young women watching him moving their stuff. He did have good cast. I remember decades later, my research life in Chicago, I'm a professor at the University of Chicago, I was really struggling with study. And I felt depressed and I felt like I had this important project that was not helping people as well as it should have. And Andre offered encouragement and really useful practical advice for me in my field. And just a year ago, we were walking up Cops Hill, talking, having a classic Andre conversation about politics and about our lives. And I just so very much wish that I could have been the same source of support and consolation for him that he was for me. And his memories will be a blessing.
I'm one of Karina's sons, Raph. As you've heard, Andre was constant in his kindness and nurturing to my mom. I noticed that from the outset 12 years ago when we first evaluated this guy. He was always giving her lots of little kisses and performing acts of service, like making her coffee and treatments to her favorite felt nice. It meant so much to see my mom with a lovely partner who understood and loved her. Sorry, a bit of a crier. Andre was also extremely generous with gathering them. For me, that took the form mostly of career advice and help. Looking through our emails when I was pursuing a startup idea, I found Example, equity dilution in investor ROI spreadsheet. A Miro board he developed with a framework for customer interviews, discussion of customer segmentation and value props, as well as introductions to interested people and suggestions like accelerated programs. Some of these emails we read were really thorough and tailored to the idea I was exploring, which would really not come as a surprise to people from Andre. So Andre was awesomely energetically helpful, as you heard. Motivated, no doubt, by his natural generosity, his personal compassion for all sorts of things. He was a natural teacher, and he was there, was something I really admire. Other than entrepreneurship, a few other topics we discussed instantly come to mind, including Mathematica. Look, you can do what a Python script does in just a simple formula. Or chess openings, Emacs, the Human Genome Project, AI, extreme ultraviolet lithography, etc. So I share this all to say that having Andre in our lives was extremely enriching. He was known for generosity. Passions and ideas, and if you remember my company, you'll listen. Hello again. I'm back. Again, I'm Mark Searle, and no paper this time. But I just wanted, before I make a few remarks, to just take a moment again to really thank and admire and appreciate Hugo and Zeno and Marina and Rafael, who brought us all together in the way that Andre brought so many people together, but how they've had the courage to stand here and share this moment with all of us. So thank you very, very much. So I met Andre 27 years ago in the context of taking over a job and he was reporting to me. So I was Andre's boss. And I don't know how many people in the room have been Andre's boss, but it's an interesting position to be in. Because as you've heard, Andre is many, many things to many, many people. And those things include curious, informed, generous, compassionate. It goes on and on. He's so many things. He's a hockey player, a chess player. How many hockey players play chess? I don't know. He's so many things to so many people, and he was my direct report in business. When he pulled me into a business where we were peers, then I brought him into a situation where I needed his help as a consultant. And he pulled me into, Kevin Brown talked about the Lester Center for Entrepreneurship job. So the 6th time that Andre and I worked together professionally was at the Lester Center for Entrepreneurship, where I was reporting to Andre. So we've had every possible business relationship. And I wanted to mention, because it's another Andre story, my outfit today is an homage to Andre. So I came to sign paperwork for my job at the Lester Center as a sort of an adjunct consultant, something that I was happy to do. And Andre was wearing a tie and I was not. And I thought, well, and I asked him, do I need to wear a tie? He said, oh, Mark, this is just my hat. I decided when I first got this job, I'm just going to wear dark pants with a white shirt and a cow tie every day. Because no matter what happens when unexpected, unscheduled meeting, it doesn't matter. And he also wore sneakers every day. So it was dark trousers, white shirt, cow, purple tie, and sneakers, because it wouldn't matter what happened that day. If somebody wanted to go for a walk and have a walk and talk meeting, he was wearing sneakers, great. If the chancellor showed up and had a meeting, he was wearing a tie. So it just didn't matter, and he said, I made this simplifying assumption, you don't have to worry about it. So that's a classic Andre hack, and he was an optimizer in so many ways. He was always optimizing. After the word went out in July, and after I posted on LinkedIn, other people started learning about Andre's death. A lot of messages were to me, and I know for Nina, and they all ran to the same themes of appreciation and disbelief, and there were a lot of words that kept coming up. And many of them you've heard here today. His great generosity, his great curiosity, he was my teacher, he was my mentor. People wrote to me who said, I only knew the two of you together, I can't imagine you without him, because we had worked together in almost all countries, but there were a lot that were working together, teaching entrepreneurs. But another theme started to emerge, and more than one person wrote, I can still hear Andre asking, what's the must-have? What's the must-have? And this was his phrase for describing to an entrepreneur the fact that if you're going to get someone to buy a new product, a new service, you have to really need it. You have to deliver something that the customer must have, not something that they just want to have or think it would be nice to have. And this point turned into a point of disagreement and debate between me and Andre. So Andre articulated this concept by saying, what's the must-have? I never liked that. I never liked that phrase because people buy things that aren't really must, but must seem so strong. And I wanted to use a different word, and I'm going to talk about that word for just like 2 more minutes. Because that word is love. I said, Andre, why don't we tell people you need to deliver products that your customers love? And he said, no, we can't talk about love in business. We need to talk about must-have. Must-have versus nice-to-have. This is nice to have, this is must-have. I should mention here that while Andre has a graduate degree in cognitive science, we both have an MBA. I actually never finished my PhD, but I have a PhD student in English. So I really worry about individual words. So we have very different perspectives on this. And so the debate that we had throughout, for the last 10 years of our relationship was, what's the right word? What's the right set of words to convey the same concept? We're both trying to convince someone, explain to someone in a way they'll always remember the same concept. Is it better to use one word or another word? What's the right? And it's an educational, pedagogical question. And so this occurred to me when I was thinking about the fact that we were going to have this event today, and these people had said, I remember Andre saying, what's the must-have? And it got me thinking about this debate and that word love, and how we know Andre loved his children. And we know Andre loved children. It's not up for debate. But why are we all here today? We're here because we love Andre. And I think that, I read David Gilbert's, from Monash Business School in Melbourne, and he said, we could all use many more Andres in the world today. I agree with that statement. But I also think we need more love, and we need to be able to talk about love more openly. Because the truth is, Andre loved in a different way from his love of family and Bermuda, and he loved his work. Andre loved his work. I loved my work with him. I love Andre. Andre's my friend, and I love Andre. And I'm just going to close by saying, I think that love has brought us all here together. Andre, every day that I watched Andre work, and I worked beside him, as his boss, as his direct report, as his colleague, as all the ways we work together, I never saw him not love what he was doing that day. And yet, he didn't want to use that word. It made him uncomfortable. And I am going to encourage us all, in honor of Andre's love for life, paradoxically enough, his love for his work, his love for knowledge he always wanted to learn. Let us embrace the fact that we love Andre, and let's talk about that, and let us also acknowledge that he loved all of us. He loved all of you. And it's the love that informs the memories that will always be with all of us for as long as we are lucky enough to live.
I'm not sure about that. Is anyone else who could top that? It's amazing. Is there anyone else who would like to speak still? Oh yes, this one has a special surprise for us. Rob, want to come? Okay. Is it still going?
Hello, I'm Dimas. I'm best known as Rachel Musk's brother. I have the pleasure of not only knowing Andre as a 1 year older than his brother, but of also going on some crazy adventures. And what I really wanted to talk about for a moment is just about Andre's willingness to embrace crazy adventures with people who he suspected might be a little pale, because he had an amazing ability to take on that kind of a risk about whether somebody's idea of adventure would be a reasonable thing to do. I have several of those stories. I don't think I can talk about very other story, so I'm going to talk about hiking in a pretty terrible week-long trip through rain. But I do want to talk about one of the adventures where the Brighton gang involved sort of this intersection with the Haas gang. So I was at a company, a very large company I had stopped really loving working at and was anxious to do something interesting, but I never worked with a startup. I never actually managed another human being professionally in my life. Andre was searching through his incredible Rolodex for people to help pull up from its suspenders this idea for a company from a couple of kids from Canada who had built a thing with a microwave oven. It was pretty nuts, honestly, but in the process of creating a company and pulling together that team, which I was fortunate that Mark Stoll was one of, Andre took that risk to say, hey, Andy, would you like to come in and run engineering for this company? Again, a little bit crazy, but Andre was crazy in that loving way where he would just reach out. He knew he was a better software developer than I was, because he was a better software developer than most people were. And so he did me the huge honor of recruiting his his friend Adam, to be the actual lawyer who would make the company successful. And the reason why this story is so important to me is because it actually not only gave me the opportunity to participate in that company, but to have a career in startups and in tech in a way that I don't know would have ever happened without him. And I just want to be clear, he had no reason to believe that I would be able to do that thing that he needed success and do it successfully. And yet, because of his willingness to follow through on ideas, some of which he knew would be not necessarily great ideas, he invested that kind of trust and faith in people and gave them those opportunities. And so, again, too many stories to recount, but I just wanted to share a little bit of how I think that Andre better was so special about him and the way that he brought his colleagues and his friends from different parts of his life together to do some pretty crazy things. Thank you, Andre. You're really nice.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan Quijano, one of the Haas crew. It's great to see everybody here from our class. It was really odd to me looking around earlier and seeing everybody, and I literally thought, where's Andre? Because he was always a part of everything that we did. Even as alums, he was always very present. My first memory of Andre was we were just starting business school, and at the time, I don't know if they still do this, but you end up in these kind of randomly assigned study groups. So he was in my first group, there's a couple of other folks here. And I remember meeting him and thinking, who is this guy who's like part Socrates, James Bond? And more importantly, like, why is he in business school and he should be teaching this? And I was pretty intimidated by him, I remember that distinctly. But as I got to know him, all the things that people have said became readily evident. He was kind, curious, super supportive. He did have that wry sense of humor, and I have sort of a goofy sense of humor, so it was always fun to sort of rattle that with him. I'm a hockey lover, and so it's nice to meet somebody in California who also liked hockey. But I got to know him more even as we graduated. I also took sort of an entrepreneurial path in my career after school. And I was always so impressed with his forward momentum. He was always moving forward, never sort of had that sort of presentation of being stuck, which I felt all the time when I was an entrepreneur. And then as he got involved back with Haas, I was so impressed and I admired the fact that he had accomplished things and could have gone on to continue accomplishing things in the entrepreneurial world, but decided to give back. And I wish that I had told him more how much I admired him, because he was a tremendous person that influenced, as people said, so many entrepreneurs. For those of you who are entrepreneurs, you know there's a lonely, just tough road. And to have people like Andre who can be there to support you, can give the resources you need, the shoulder to lean on, the guidance, is pretty rare. He did that for thousands of people. You know, we're the beneficiaries of being in the Silicon Valley and the Bay Area, and Haas has a lot of luminaries who've come through before our time and since. We've done a lot in the entrepreneurial world. But if there's ever a Mount Rushmore for entrepreneurship at Haas, I think you will never find another person that had accomplishment, influence, impact, and just dedication to supporting entrepreneurs the way Andre did. So I'm glad I was able to make it. I think that from Seattle. So and the last thing I want to say is I remember meeting Florina the first time I met you. I was instantly caught by how much he was enamored with you. I mean, we were talking, and he almost stood stuck looking at you. And I think it was just like 2 or 3 years ago, you all graciously allowed me to stay at your lovely home. And I'm gonna miss him, for sure.
Mitchell Knox, I'm one of the writing gang. Standing up with this acoustic device, it's analog, because this is when Andre and we were in band together, bandmates. Unbelievably, I played a little bit in the jazz band. I don't know why. You don't believe in French horn, which that's how we first connected. So I was going to play something. It's an extract from a piece Benjamin Britten for tenor horn and strings. There's any tenors, Aaron plays the string, you can come up and join me. If not, I'll just do the prologue, which is for horn by itself. I don't know why I just thought of Andre. I'm going to put this over here because I don't need amplification. This guy got this part. I met Andre as a freshman, right in high school, so in the writing gang. We came from 2 different middle schools. There was French Road and there was 12 Corners Middle. Andre didn't like me, at least not at first. I mean, we had a group, but I don't think we were as well connected as the others. But that would change over time. I mean, Andre was pretty different. You just heard about the sport that I was good at. He was a hockey player. He was kind of the cool one, and the poised one, the confident one, the courageous one. So I wasn't as close with him. My goodness, he even had a high school girlfriend. Thank God we had Friday Night Dungeons and Dragons. But as high school progressed, we became closer friends, and we had the band in common. And then years later, we kind of kept intersecting paths. He was working at the Genome Project at MIT, and I had theoretically been down the street doing graduate school in biology, at least for a little while. But we did have this common interest in biotech, and one thing or another, we both wind up in the San Francisco Bay Area, as the nerdy folks tend to do. And I read an article in the science paper, and I thought, this is a cool article. Andre, do you want to do a biotech start? And he said, sure, let's do it. Okay. And, we had a sketch on a napkin, and we started working together. we were in this incredibly shabby office on Cambridge Avenue in Palo Alto, where to slide a bit. A cinder block building is now demolished. There was a rumor that they also filmed pornography in the building, but I cannot confirm or deny. But there we were in two little rooms, hanging out all day after day, trying to raise money, going out for coffee, going out for lunch, and just trying to build this dream. And that was in about 2008. And after about a few months or a year, Andre was getting divorced. He moved to Boston, and he lived with Zeno and Cat. But we still stayed in touch, and there I was. But there was Andre, even by phone. He was the comm center. He just said, "You've got this, you take this on." And eventually the company did become a proper company, and we had a drug candidate. Pfizer bought the company 4 years ago. I was talking to one of the medical officers at Pfizer, and he basically said, "Thank God you found this molecule. We've already saved hundreds of lives in clinical trials." So maybe people in this room know a little bit more about Andre's tech side, but everybody should understand his contribution on the biotech side. And with any luck, this will become an approved drug in a few years. It's curing people who couldn't otherwise be cured. Another little Andre biotech factoid is he started a project with Lilly called Horus 20-odd years ago with Neil, who we heard a little bit about earlier. And that program is still going strong, helping drugs accelerate as fast as they can. Anyway, so that was that, and then fast forward a few years later, Andre's with Farina. I think most of the people in this room realize, in addition to her many amazing qualities, is a terrific cook. So Andre and I had the privilege of celebrating my birthday with Andre. And this was something I would look forward to every year. And now we won't have those, but I will think of Andre every birthday. Andre, always had the air of the possible, and it was contagious. Traveled the world, had an adventure, solve an impossible biotech problem, just do it. And it was inspiring, and I will miss him. I'll share one more story. It's, years after I started the company, we were raising a round of financing. The venture capitalists came in and they said, "Who's this Andre Marquis, and why does he have so much stock in the company?" And they said, as a lot of VC people do, that's Eileen, let's take him out. He's not in the company anymore. And I said, "No." I said, "You realize this will jeopardize the financing?" And my response was, "He's my co-founder, he's my friend, I'm not doing that." Because although we hadn't worked in the same room for a few years, his contribution was so important. Anyway, so share those memories.
I don't want to comment to this if there's anyone else, but I think that was beautiful, Mitchell, and but I think Marcia, what? Oh, you left it off, Marcia? Okay.
thing I wanted to share is a lot of people have talked about Andre's kindness and generosity, and I was very much a beneficiary of that in my friendship with him through Karina. And I saw him the last day, and I ran into him on the street. I was leaving Karina, and he was walking home, and I chatted with him for a second, and then returned to go opposite directions. And then I said, "Oh, hey, Andre, I have a question," and I had a question for him. He's kind of my tech support department, and I asked him a question, and even that day, when he must have had so much going on for him, he stopped and he asked me a few questions so that he could give me a better answer to the question that I had asked him. And the fact that he would do that at that time when he was going through so much internally just showed like how kind and generous he was to the poor. And I just wanted to tell you about that. Thank you.
Well, we've heard from a lot of nobody wants to talk. Good. We can keep this going. I don't mean to call it. You still want to talk?
Hello, so I'm Gigi Obrecht. Okay, I'm not going to add a lot. I just wanted at this moment just to talk about Andre and his relationship with Karina. I didn't meet Andre through professional or academic channels. I knew Andre through the outcome of an IQ book match. And that's how Karina and Andre. I guess I just wanted to talk about how, as a witness to what a kind, steadfast, supportive partner he was for Karina. You all know how incredibly generous and thoughtful he was as a colleague, but as a romantic partner. The thing that really, like, for a friend, thinking about how a good friend's relationship was, Karina relayed to me early in their years together how she was going to Vietnam for her youngest son's high school graduation, and that Andre wouldn't let her go alone because she wanted to support her in her ex-husband's territory. And okay, there's a ton to unpack about that, and it's too much to unpack, but I knew what that meant, and that's just this deep empathy. And I realized then that Karina had somebody that was really special. I saw this empathy over and over. I had the good fortune of seeing him play the piano in my home, not knowing that he had that gift, which is a skill that I deeply admire. I was moved by seeing the light in his face when he would look at his arena. I saw that again at a Korean restaurant over barbecue with his son Zeno, and the idea that Zeno might be relocating to the Bay Area professionally. It was very moving. He was always quick to offer help, especially propelling his purview of tech. But he also had that inexplicable optimism, which I found myself seeking out during the 2024 election. I think some of you might have known that he helped fast to the conviction that Kamala Harris would win. And even though that seemed impossible to me, I took so much comfort in having him explain why that was the case. So back to the relationship between Corinne and Andre. I think sitting here this evening, just seeing these beautiful photos, you can see that not only did Andre enrich Karina's life, Karina brought so much joy and happiness to Andre's. She was very careful to mark the important times, and this incredible photo slideshow, many of the pictures are between Karina and Andre. The joy that you see in there was real. I miss his adorable smile, and his great hair. I have that always visual in my mind. And all of the qualities that he possessed that we talked about tonight, his brilliance, his kindness, they will always persist.
Any last words? Anyone, please? It's time. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. Step up here for a second. Have another drink if you wish. I see that there's a lot of snacks left still. If you're hungry, stay. I think we said 6 o'clock, so we still have about half an hour. I'm so grateful for your friendship to Andre. I'm very moved by all the words you shared today. I can't really express it right now, but I'm looking forward to seeing you all more privately. A lot of you stay in touch with. I know there's a lot of you I will be in touch with. Anyway, I'm deeply grateful to Andre's sons, and Zeno, who happened to be here, and he was so proud of you. Love you so much. And I don't really know how to wrap this up, so have another drink, eat something, and we can go a little bit more. Thank you.